Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community.
The James Gang will be the topic on Read About It tonight. Hi, I'm BJ Williams. Johnny Boggs will be here to tell us about his book, The Arm of the Bandit. Susie Beasley will talk with Leo Mendoza. Kids Corner will feature Rosemary Zarsky. We also have Lavita Dent, Megan Johnson, Elizabeth Kessler, Heidi Daniel Morgan, and Scott Richter. Coming up, Johnny Boggs.
The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It, with your host, BJ Williams.
A few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to interview Johnny Boggs, who is a Western writer. He lives in Santa Fe. He has written both fiction and nonfiction about the Wild, Wild West. This book that he's going to talk to us about today, The Arm of the Bandit, is actually a trial set in the West. It is the trial of Jesse James' younger brother, Frank, who was actually arrested and tried for murder. I think you'll enjoy what he has to say. Johnny, what got you interested in trials in the Old West?
It's true. My background, my legal expertise, you might say, has been limited to watching Perry Mason, Law and Order, and 2 terms on jury duty.
Oh dear.
But I was, yeah. But I'd started researching another murder trial just because it was an interested subject, and came across all these other great murder trials that had never been either fictionalized or they'd never been what I thought given the proper due in history books.
Well, in fact, you mentioned in the great murder trials of the Old West, some of these have gotten quite overlooked. There are a few that are still famous, but most of them really aren't part of the, I guess you would call it, the popular history of our times.
True. I mean, John Wesley Hardin was an icon among figures of Texas gunfighters. Was charged with murder and tried in Comanche, Texas. But he skipped over his murder trial in his autobiography, and subsequent historians have kind of skimmed over it too.
So you felt you needed to tell the real story.
Well, tell the real story, just fill in a void. I mean, there's a reason a lot of these historians have overlooked these trials, and that's because finding the documentation, doing the research is very time consuming.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I was going to ask next. How do you research? You just go down to the courthouse and get the records from the trial?
Unfortunately, in most cases in the civilian trials, the records no longer exist. Military trials, court-martials, you can find documentation, the actual transcripts. In the civilian cases, often you have to go through newspaper accounts.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that the newspaper accounts were quite often colored by the bias of the reporter?
Oftentimes, yes. There were some credible journalists of the period too, but sometimes they convicted people long before the trial was held.
Mm-hmm. Well, I brought that up because in this Arm of the Bandit, which is part of your series,
right,
is about the trial of Frank James, and I believe there's a newspaper reporter in there who's just a trifle biased.
Yes. In Missouri, in the 1880s, 1860s, when the James Younger gang started robbing banks and trains, they had their fans in the media, and they had their enemies in the media. So oftentimes the cases could be tried. You could get a pretty good idea of what was going on and which side they were taking.
Mm-hmm. Well, he gets pretty floored. Now, this is a fictionalized account of that trial.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
He does get, though, pretty carried away with his myth-making, I guess is what he was trying to do.
And he succeeded, very much so.
Yes, he did. Frank and Jesse are real folk heroes, but they killed an awful lot of people, didn't they?
Frank James was an interesting character. I tried to make him a little more compassionate because he is the main character and one of the main characters in the book, and it is about his murder trial. But he could quote Shakespeare, very well read, very passionate man, but could be cold-blooded.
Yeah. Well, and they did seem to grow up thinking there was only one way to make a living.
That's true.
So newspaper reports so you're saying that in the 1870s more newspapers kept records than courthouses?
Well, Yes, so some cases, yes, depending on where the trial was held. But in other cases, Western towns were very susceptible to fires back then, so a lot of the courthouse records have been destroyed over the years. Military records, they had so much, had to forward the court-martial transcripts and the proceedings to up the chain of command all the way to Washington, so you've got a better chance of finding those records.
Now, just out of curiosity, are most of those records now available on microfiche or on the internet, or do you have to go to where they are deposited and put on the white gloves and actually read through them?
You have to do both. I mean, excuse me, the National Archives, if you can find the records there, they do have them on some of them on microfiche, and some of them are actually typewritten. Other ones you have to kind of try to make out the stenographer's scrawl, which can be very challenging too. Internet access, sometimes, but most often you're going to have to go through a public library archives to find the actual records.
So you ended up traveling over a good bit of the Old West when you were putting together or doing the research for these great murder trials.
Did a lot of traveling and bribed a lot of librarians where I couldn't get to.
Well, librarians are fairly susceptible to an earnest researcher. Let me put it that way. They are librarians are there to get information to the public, and so I'm glad to hear that they were susceptible to persuasion. Let's say on the great murder trials of the Old West. Now, you said that these were murder trials that didn't fit into your series. The Arm of the Bandit is part of a series of very famous trials, but you came across a number of others that you felt would be better served just by a short treatment in this book. Sure,
definitely. Arm of the Bandit is a fiction novelization of Frank James' trial in Missouri. The other part of those series, forthcoming books, are Spark on the Prairie about the Kiowa Indian trial in Jacksboro, Texas in 1871, and Billy the Kid's trial in New Mexico in 1881. But those have been pretty well documented. I mean, you can find there have been actually books written solely about the Kiowa Indian trial and Frank James's murder trial. The Billy the Kid trial, unfortunately, got almost no newspaper coverage, and the courthouse records do not exist. So I didn't have enough, it's kind of funny, I didn't have enough information to write a 7,000 word chapter, nonfiction, so I wrote a 90,000 word novel instead.
Well, that just means you're very creative. But I was impressed in the great murder trials at the names that I had heard one way or another mentioned and had no idea that they had been involved in murder trials of one kind. As you said, the John Wesley Hardin didn't really mention the fact that he'd been arrested and tried for murder. And sad to say, I'm an Oklahoman, and I knew about Bill Tillman, but I didn't know enough to know that he had been murdered or killed in the line of duty. It sounds like both he and the guy who pulled the trigger were not really nice people.
Bill Tillman was 70 years old when he went to Wewoka to serve as town marshal in 1920s. In 1924, he was killed by a federal law enforcement agent named Wiley Lynn. You think about Bill Tillman, and he's been portrayed as he was one of the three guardsmen of Oklahoma, one of the legendary lawmen in Oklahoma and even Kansas. But he had a bit of a shadowy reputation. Wiley Lynn, who killed him, was no saint either. And the trial received a lot of regional activity, recognition in the trial in 1925.
Well, it seems like in the Old West there were an awful lot of people that tended to jump back and forth on both sides of the law. One day they would be robbing the bank, the next day they would be arresting the robbers.
And I'm not saying that Tillman did that, but during the trial his reputation was kind of brought into question in front of the jury.
Okay. Well, unfortunately we are out of town, but I want... out of town, we're out of time. Not out of town, we're out of time. Sorry about that. And I want to thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Sarah, for having me.
We've had Johnny Boggs with us talking about his books, Great Murder Trials of the Old West and Arm of the Bandit. You can find both of these books at your library and your favorite bookstore. And if you want to find out more about Johnny, check out his website at www.johnnydboggs.com. Johnny's latest book, The Big 50, has just come out. You can find that at your local bookstore and find out what his upcoming books will be by checking his website. Coming up next is Susie Beasley. She'll be talking with Leo Mendoza, who is a program coordinator with ACOG, and he wants to tell us about one of the books in our Spanish language collection.
Leo, can you tell us a little bit about the book Los Hispanos in Hollywood?
Sure. The book Los Hispanos in Hollywood describes popular individuals such as Antonio Banderas, Salma Hayek, presently, and goes all the way to the past of the 1920s.
Right.
It has a short biography of each person, the films that they've been into, how they started their careers, where they're at presently. It also talks and describes directors, screenwriters, people behind the scenes.
Right. So it kind of gives you, in an organized way, it goes and tells you about all the different people, and then it gives little bio sketches and everything like that.
Exactly.
So now this book is in the Spanish language, so is it fairly new?
It is fairly new. When I read the book, it was published in 2001. It is in Spanish and written very well. Anyone who speaks the various dialects in Spanish would be able to understand it. It's a thorough book, and it describes in detail. Hopefully, if some young people were to read it, they may become inspired by it.
Right, because it has a fairly good index and, of course, a lot of photographs.
Definitely.
Things of that nature. Because a lot of times people may not have the history of Hispanics in Hollywood. They know a few, of course, of the early ones that you had mentioned, but some of the ones that came before, and they kind of paved the way and
Exactly.
all that. So what other materials does the library have in Spanish language? I know Phil had called and said this was in the Capitol Hill area you were interested in coming on. So what other materials do we have that would be helpful?
I'm impressed at the amount of literature they have in Spanish. They have other books such as some civil rights activist, Cesar Chavez.
Right.
They have books of him in Spanish. They have history books in Spanish talking about the history of Mexico from the Incan Indians to the Mayan Indians. They have books about the military in Spanish to better educate our armed forces. They also have music CDs in Spanish as well.
And I know they subscribe to different magazines that are in Spanish.
Different magazines they have.
And also, do we get the Spanish-speaking newspaper?
There's two Spanish-speaking newspapers there.
Right, the El Nacional, I remember that. So this book, Los Hispanos in Hollywood by Luis Reyes.
Luis Reyes.
And Peter Ruby, those are the editors and everything. And one other thing that I know that your first time being on, you're associated with the Association of Central Oklahoma Governments, and you're the program coordinator for youth development, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then. You're also a member of the League of the United Latin American Citizens here in the city.
Yes, I am.
So, well, we really appreciate you coming and sharing with us, Leo, Los Hispanos in Hollywood by Luis Rey and Peter Ruby. And this is available at your local library and perhaps your local specialty bookstore. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Dig it! Dig it at Metro Library. Call this number. Dig it, baby! Dig it at Metro Library. Call this number.
Levita Dent is with the library system and makes regular appearances on Read About It, and she's here to tell us about something exciting for lots of young people at the library, and it's our summer reading program, isn't it?
Yes, we call it Summer at the Library, and it has 5 different components now. We have children can get involved as Read to Me explorers, and they can set their goal for what they want to listen to being read to, the number of books, and they can get prizes for completing their goals. Then we have a program where kids who are reading for themselves can set their own goals for what they want to read for the summer, and they get the prizes for the books that they read. And this runs from May 27th through July 31st. Then we also have the teen reading program and the teen volunteer program. So teens can get involved either way. In the volunteer program, they will help the kids with their reading program. Then we have the Neighborhood Arts Program, where we bring performers that are locally and from nationally known performers. And this year it starts May 27th along with the summer reading program, and runs through the last week of July. And we have the first 2 weeks is the Lucky Penny Players that we have every year for many, many years now. And everybody just loves, and so we're excited to see what they have for us this year. Then we have Rhythmically Speaking coming, and again they're going to do a show called After the Asteroids. And the theme this year is dinosaurs, so a lot of their performances will have to do with that. Then we have 2x4 Productions with Cheryl Martin, and they're doing Dinosaurs Don't Dance.
Okay.
And then we have Monty Harper's coming. He does his wacky, witty, way out songs, and he's doing dinosaur songs this year. Then we'll have Al Bostic, and he's doing a show he's calling Somebody Who Told Somebody Who Told Somebody Else Who Told Somebody Else Who Told Somebody Else.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is, it is. Nationally, we brought Lucas Miller, who is the safari guy, doing a show called Totally Wild, and then the Cherokee storyteller, who is doing Native American stories of yesterday and today. His name is Tim Tingle.
Okay. Now, in order to get the prizes, and this is including toddlers that mommy or daddy will have to, or big sister or big brother could read to them too.
Right.
But you have to go to your local library, and they've got a contract, and you work out. You say, "Well, I'm only going to make one book a week," or whatever.
Right. They set their goal. They know what activities they have going on for the summer, so just work in books with it and set their goal for what they can get done. We do let them change their goal one time if they get a little unrealistic at the beginning.
I'm going to read 3 books a week, and then you come back and I forgot I signed up for summer camp too.
Right, and they'll still get their prizes. For the Read to Me Explorers, they'll get a free book. And then for the readers, they'll get the 2 tickets to the Red Hawks ball game in August. They will get a 1 children's theater ticket, and then they get a medallion. And several other prizes just for signing up, and just a little Sonic coupon at some point throughout the summer they'll get as well.
Sounds great. But now you don't have to sign up for the neighborhood arts. Those are programs at each library.
Well, they do need to check with their library and find out.
But I mean, they don't sign up for summer reading.
It doesn't include signing up for the neighborhood arts. It's
Right.
2 separate ways, and each library has their own way of signing up for the neighborhood arts. So
Right.
they do need to check with them. And our sponsors for that is the Oklahoma City Arts Council and Council of Oklahoma.
Okay, great. Unfortunately, we're out of time. They've got to go to the website or their local library for
Right.
more. Thank you very much, Levita. Coming up next, we have Kids Corner. Kelly Rhea will be talking with Rosemary Zarsky about a book just for our young adults.
Hi, Rosemary Zarsky from the Choctaw Library is here. She loves young adult books. She's brought a fabulous one called Jericho Walls.
Right.
It's by Christy Collier. And why'd you bring this today?
Well, I was intrigued. What's Jericho Walls? And when you think of the biblical interpretation of Jericho, you think of the walls falling down. And so I thought, well, what wall needs to come down?
Oh.
And that's why I read it. And turns out it was the wall of racism in the 50s.
Oh, okay. So if teens want to find out what life was like a little bit in the 50s, what the standards were, how people viewed one another, then this would be a good book to dive into.
To get a general impression, because it wasn't a stated attitude. It was a
Implied.
You grew up with it, so you never thought to question it. Joe's father is a preacher who takes stands on various social issues every place he is preaching, and he gets a chance to go home to Jericho in the South, and there, of course, the big thing is this racial issue, and he has this Southern background to overcome for his own needs. His wife wants to go to work, which back then just didn't happen. And Joe was a preacher's kid. And you know,
There were a lot of expectations
That's
for
right.
those children.
pressure was always high, and she's just not one of those kids that can be nice and sedate, and that attracted me to her.
And her name is Jo?
Her name is Jo, and you know, except for that she's a preacher's kid, she reminded me of when I was growing up in the 50s, so I really enjoyed reading the story. And she meets her housekeeper's son, Lucas, and he wants to help animals and eventually become a veterinarian. And she likes helping him help the animals, but they're not supposed to know each other. And so this is a story of how this friendship develops. And like all good books, there has to be a final confrontation. And that is when Jo has to decide who she is, what does she stand for, and what is she willing to risk.
This is a fascinating book. Rosemary loved it. It's called Jericho Walls, and it's by Christy Collier. You can find it at your local bookstore or at your favorite library.
It's time now for the New York Times bestseller list. We'll start out with hardback fiction. Number 10 on that list is Executive Power by Vince Flynn, No Second Chance by Harlan Coben, The Devil Wears Prada by Lauren Weisberger, A Cold Heart by Jonathan Kellerman, The King of Torts by John Grisham, The Guardian by Nicholas Sparks, The Sinister Pig by Tony Hillerman, The Second Time Around by Mary Higgins Clark, The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown is number 2, and Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins' Armageddon is number 1. On the nonfiction list, The Future of Freedom by Fareed Zakaria is 10, The Teammates by David Halberstam, Stupid White Men by Michael Moore, Are You Hungry, Dear by Doris Roberts with Danielle Morton, I Love You, Mom, edited by Diane Clehan, What Should I Do with My Life by Poe Bronson, Krakatoa by Simon Winchester, Dereliction of Duty by Robert Buzz Patterson, A Patriot's Handbook, selected by Caroline Kennedy, is number 2, and Queen Noor's Leap of Faith is number 1. On the children's list, number 10 is The Seeing Stone by Tony D. Terlizzi and Holly Black, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling, The Wide Window by Lemony Snicket, The Reptile Room, The Carnivorous Carnival, The Bad Beginning, all by Lemony Snicket, The Field Guide by Tony D. Terlizzi and Holly Black, Princess in Waiting by Meg Cabot, The Second Summer of the Sisterhood by Anne Brashears is number 2, and Ian Colfer's Artemis Fowl, The Eternity Code is number 1. Coming up next, we have our own Doug Benton talking with Megan Johnson and Elizabeth Kessler, also of the library system, about a video that's available at our libraries.
Hello again, everybody. I am here once more with Elizabeth and Megan from our Materials Selection Office, and we're going to talk about a video. And we're going to have a little difference of opinion on this one today. This is Megan's choice, so, you know, be prepared. I'm being ugly on purpose. What did you bring? What did you choose?
I chose West Side Story, which
Okay.
is, of course, a well-known movie. It swept the Oscars in 1961. It is a musical version of the Romeo and Juliet story, updated to 1950s New York. And instead of Montagues and Capulets, you have two rival street gangs, the Jets and the Sharks. And mainly, I'll admit, I chose this movie just because I know you dislike it so much.
You see what I have to put up with on this show?
So, you know, Doug, do your worst. Tell me why you dislike this movie so much.
Okay. Well, I don't like it because at the very beginning, it starts off, we see one of the gangs, the Anglo gang, dancing in the street, which is fine. The dancing and the singing is marvelous in this film, even though the lead actors don't sing their own roles, which gets under my skin too. Natalie Wood is the Juliet figure, and she doesn't sing a note of her music. Richard Beymer is the Romeo figure. He doesn't sing. Even Rita Moreno doesn't sing all of her songs, and she's a musical performer. But you see the gangs, the streets are empty, there's nobody there, their clothes are neat and clean, and it just begins on a note of such falsity for me that I have a hard time catching up with it again. I mean, that's where I began with it.
Well, I understand. I think it's because it's a musical, it's supposed to be stylized, and I don't really expect too much realism from, a movie where there's, song and dance.
Well, but you see, but what, 7 or 8 years later with Oliver, they had big street scenes and the big song in the street, Consider Yourself, and there were people everywhere. And the guys were wearing rags because they didn't have any money. So I think it's an interpretation. It's Elizabeth, you're not going to get out of this now. Jump in, come on.
Great. I love the dancing and the choreography. I love this movie. I do, though, didn't like to see Natalie Wood's voice get dubbed. I mean, that was...
I think if they were going to dub her voice, they should have gotten someone whose voice was a lot more like her own than Marnie Nixon's. But.
Yeah. Poor Marnie Nixon was dubbing everybody in the 60s. She dubbed Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady, and I think she may have done some others, too.
Yes. Deborah Carr.
But I still think it's a great movie, great dancing, even if Natalie Wood as Maria was kind of bland, and so was Richard Bamer as Tony.
Yeah.
I think Anita and Bernardo, their chemistry, both dancing and in their dialogue, kind of makes up for that.
Yeah. Dancing was so energetic, and it was just amazing to watch. You just sit there memorized watching it.
The other gang, the Sharks, they're Puerto Rican. And when they're on screen, when they gang us on screen, it all lights up. It's really very good when they're there. But yeah, I think the leads are very bland as well. Okay, we're being given the shut up and move along sign here, so let's stop. Megan, thanks for bringing it in, even though I don't mind watching it once every 25 years, so you do that for me now. That's it. I won't have to watch it again. Thanks. We'll see you again soon.
Next is Heidi Daniel Morgan with Scott Richter from North Edmond High.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for being with us today. What's the name of the book that you're reviewing today?
I read True Believer by Virginia Yearwolf.
Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about the style that Virginia Yearwolf uses to write the book True Believer?
Virginia Yearwolf actually has oh man, she has the coolest. I'll read you the first page.
Okay.
I love this intro. This is one of my favorite intros. My name is Levon and I am 15. When I'm a little kid, when a little kid draws pictures, it's all a big face and some arms stuck on. That's their life. Well then, you get older and you're a whole mess of things. New thoughts, sorry feelings, big plans, enormous doubts, going along hoping and getting disappointed. Over and over again. No wonder I don't recognize my little crown picture. It appears to be me, and it is not.
Wow, that's
I love that intro.
That's great. It's very poetic, too.
Mm-hmm.
And
she, Levon, her writing style, it's from Levon's point of view. It's in her head.
Mm-hmm. And so you get to feel really close to Levon.
Yeah, you feel like you know Levon. As you go along further into the book, you feel like you start to know Levon.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about Levon's life?
Levon is a 15-year-old girl who grows up. She's very, very poor. She grows up in a bad part of town, and her father died early. And she plans to go to college. That's her most important aspect. She wants to go to college more than anything in her life. And suddenly, this boy named Jody, who she used to be friends with, comes in her life. And he's not the little boy she used to know. He's this really gorgeous looking guy.
And how old are the characters now?
They're 15 years old.
15 is, okay.
Yeah. And she struggles through all these things. Her best friends go away for this club called Cross Your Legs for Jesus. It's an abstinence club. And she goes through all these really hard issues in her lifetime.
And this is actually the second book in a trilogy, right?
Yes. Make Lemonade was her first book, and this is
Can you read True Believer without having read Make Lemonade?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can. It appeals to everyone.
Now, where does True Believer take place? You said Levon lives in a really rough neighborhood. Do you know it?
Actually, they never mentioned that. They never mentioned exactly where it took place or even what race she actually was.
Really? So it's appealing to, it can be kind of across cultures and locations?
Most definitely.
Wow. Well, that sounds really great. Did you like the book a lot?
I loved this book.
Great.
It was so good. I strongly suggest it to anyone.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Scott.
You're welcome.
See you next week.